Welcome to my tank review of the Panzer IV F2. This tank represents the first proper tank killer for the German tank line and is it in its abilities and stats pretty similar to all other Panzer IV's variants afterwards. Also, this tank represents the overall spirit of all other German tanks from this point onwards. I tried to make the tank review as compact and informative as possible. I will talk a little bit about the history of this tank, its stat, armor and firepower, and I will compare it to its main opponents on the battlefield you will mostly see when driving this tank. I will give you an overview about its strength and weaknesses so that you both know how to drive it effectively but also how to take it out fast. In the development, the Panzer IV was intended as a support tank for the Panzer IIIs, which were the frontline tanks, having better armor and a solid 5 cm anti-tank gun. The early versions of the Panzer IV had a short-barreled 75mm howitzer, capable of delivering an HE shell to soft targets up to 6 km. So it is no surprise that the early versions had high mobility, lots of ammunition, but weak armor. While the basic concept of the Panzer IV proved to be good and results in Poland and France showed that this tank fitted the matter of the Blitzkrieg very well, it also became obvious that the Panzer IV was inferior to French and British tanks when it was forced into tank versus tank engagement. This proved to be catastrophical when Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941 in Operation Barbarossa. While the main bulk of Russian armor consisted of light tanks such as the BT series tanks and the T-26s, which were no problem for both the Panzer IIIs and the Panzer IVs, the T-34s and KV-1s proved to be superior to the German tanks in both armor and firepower. This is also very well represented in the game. This experience forced the German High Command to do something. The German army needed a good, reliable weapon against anything it could face. The solution was the PaK-40 7.5 cm anti-tank gun, which became the KWK-40 L43. The Panzer III's turret ring could not support this gun, but the Panzer IV could. This was the point where the roles of the Panzer III and the Panzer IVs changed. The Panzer IV became the anti-tank weapon and the Panzer III was used as the support tank. We see that in War Thunder as the premium Panzer III with the short-barreled 75mm gun and also its chassis being used for the Marder series of tank destroyers and the Stücks. The Panzer IV from this moment on was Germany's most important and most versatile tank. Even the Panthers and Tigers couldn't replace this tank due to the total production number of 8,500 Panzer IVs. This tank was produced and used up until the end of the war. Even more chassis were produced and were used for tank destroyers, self-propelled guns, anti-air vehicles and numerous other support tanks. All in common had a crew of 5. So let's talk about the Panzer IV F2 itself, and we will begin with the armor. Now with War Thunder's in-game armor viewer we can see that both the front of the turret and also the chassis itself are 50mm thick. This is not a very good armor, but we have this slope here which is just 20mm thick, but it is heavily angled and usually normal shells will ricochet due to the angle of 72 degrees. The lower glacis is also 50mm thick and at an angle of 59 degrees it results in, this part is practically impenetrable. Also the Commander's cupola is 30mm thick, so if you have really problems penetrating this tank, which you usually don't have, you can shoot here as long as you have APHE shells. The sight, well, again, it's very thin, 30mm for both the turret and the sight, and the rear is also for both the turret and the rear armor 30mm thick. This is a thickness where even certain AAA tanks can penetrate you. And when we have a look in the inside, we will see that we have, as I mentioned, 5 crew members, 3 in the turret and 2 in the chassis, we see that this tank is nothing but a giant ammo rack. Behind the driver, behind the radio operator or machine gunner, on the sides, even here in front of the engine we have some ammunition, and also a fuel tank. And yeah, there's the engine. So when this tank gets hit, it mostly gets one-shotted unless you take out a lot of ammunition. I tried a bit around and I found out that when you just use around about 30 shells, you practically take out this ammo rack, this ammo rack, this ammo rack, and also those two ammo racks. And that should increase your survivability a lot, because your main opponents will shoot here, taking out the driver and the gunner, but also more or less hitting those ammo racks, and also probably taking out the commander. So when you take out this ammo racks, you can sometimes survive shots fired here. You might be crippled, but you might have time for your crew getting replaced, and you might fire back. Then let's talk about the gun and the firepower. And when we talk about also the modules you could upgrade, well, there we have the stock shell, which does have 135 millimeters of penetration at 10 meters at 90 degrees. And this is one of the best guns and one of the best shells at this tier. Also, the rate of fire is relatively good, because we have something between 7.67 seconds for a stock tank and 6.2 seconds for a good crew with credits trained. So this is pretty good. But for the APHE shell, the stock shell, the TNT equivalent of the high explosive filling is by far the lowest compared to the T-34s and the KV-1s, which have both 150 grams of TNT equivalent in their APHE shells. Even the Sherman has 63.7 grams of TNT equivalent, but it doesn't have an APCR shell. And this APCR shell is really, really good. At this tier, it might be usable against such tanks as the KV-1. But, you know, even with your stock shell, you have enough penetration against these tanks. So, its main opponents are the M4 Sherman, as I just said, also the T-34s in three variants, the 1940, the 1941, and the 1942 variant. Also, we have the KV-1 with the L11 gun. And for the British, we face the Cromwell 1 and the Churchill 3 variant. Now, compared to the British tanks, you have a much longer reload time, but both the damage potential and the penetration of your stock shell is way better. For the Soviet tanks, you have a better reload and a better penetration value, way better, but your destruction potential with the stock shell is not as good. And for the M4 Sherman, you still have way better penetration with your APHE shell. The destruction potential of the M4 Sherman APHE shell is somewhere in between the German Panzergranate 39 and the Soviet APHE shell. While you have actually no problem penetrating all other nations' tank you will potentially face, there is a high chance that this shell actually ricochets or bounces off the armor, especially from the T-34's angled armor. So always try to shoot your enemy tanks in the turret. You have enough penetration, usually it doesn't bounce or does go through at flat angles. Also, your APHE filling, while being relatively low, it does have enough fragmentation to do a lot of damage. This shell is an anti-crew shell, and you often can one-shot your enemies. And if you miss the crew, you still can explode ammo racks and set fuel depots and also engines on fire. Now, about the gun itself, It's a long-barreled anti-tank gun, and it does have 10 degrees of gun depression. 10 degrees of gun depression is usually something you will find exclusively on American tanks, so you can imagine this this tank actually can work ridge lines. So you poke out and take the shot and get back. Now I will show some gameplay footage in arcade battles, but the lessons we learned so far in the tank review are universal, and they go for all modes you will ever use your tank in War Thunder. So let's talk about which modules you should go for first. Well, this tank is basically all about the gun. So after having researched the parts, which is for me the first module I unlock on all tanks, regardless of which designation or nation they are, you have to research this one. Then I would go for the horizontal turret drive because it increases your turret rotation speed, and also you should then go for the third upgrade for the fire prevention system. I think those three upgrades are necessary for all tanks in War Thunder, and yeah, they are practically the basics of survivability in my opinion. After that, I would go for the adjustment of fire, and then you can unlock the tier 3 upgrades. And then I would upgrade the elevation mechanism, and after that I would research both the heat shell and then the APCR shell. And then you can practically research everything you want, but after that I would go for the engine and the transmission. And also a general rule in War Thunder is first research the engine, then the transmission, because for the same amount of research points you get twice as much horsepower for the engine than you would get for the transmission upgrade, so keep that in mind. This tank is rather fast, but the gun is just usable when you're stationary, so the brake system is also not a very bad idea. I highly recommend that as well. Artillery support, well, at this tier combat is fast paced, but some capture points you could use it, but this is an RNG weapon. I see no direct use. Sometimes it's nice to have, but I always rely on my main armament or my main gun. So then I think it's time for some gameplay. So we have a conquest battle at Tunisia where the only cap is in the middle of the town or the village. And a quick look at the minimap lets me realize I left all my teammates behind because, as you could see, or can see rather, that the speed of the Panzer IV F2 is rather high. I tried to get on an ambush position, but oh, a bunch of tank destroyers are there, and boom, there goes my radio operator. So with the riverside gone, I decide I have none of those tank destroyers and decide myself to disappear into the town and go into a sneaky position here. Now this is an interesting spot because you can cap, lay an ambush for the enemy tanks, and they don't expect you here. So I cap and the rest of my team distributes itself in the town. Well, seems to be great, and now we have nothing to do than wait and let's cap. But as you can see on the minimap, well, some tanks sneak behind us and one of them is in the cap. So I can't cap, I go a little bit forward, see that there is a tank but totally missed the shot. But he totally is not aware of mine. So side shot and boom, there he goes. This is how good the APHE shell can be. So I turn around because I see more and more dots appear, so I try to ambush them, and there I see a AAA vehicle. Now those Thunderkraftfahrzeugs can be dangerous, but I take him out with the machine gun. So I see that our bridgehead is under siege, so to say, and I try to help them out. I go around the corner And have you seen that? That was the shell from one of the tank destroyers. And this is why I survived this rather bad driving. So, there is no enemy tank. There could have been one if I have overlooked it. And then I prepare into sniper mode and unlucky bounce from the side armor on the drastic angle, but the next shell, boom, well, his turret is gone. He goes forward, tries to turn around, one shot into the side, sets him on fire. I wait until somebody is in the turret again and boom, kill. So, my work here is done. I turn around and friendly KV-1 makes sure that there is really no enemy tank here, and I try to go back into the old position basically and get ambushed by an American AAA vehicle, which gets taken out, it seems like by machine gun fire from one of our Shermans, the duo of the 50 cal, so to say, well, the one with Armour 1. And there I see on the radar that I can expect a tank crossing, but I donk it up, and there you see the bump. I waited for that, and a quick shot in the turret takes out his gunner and his commander. Another shot into the engine, yeah, and then one shot into the turret once I see that it rotates and somebody's in the turret, taking him out. Rather fast-paced commentary so far. Let's see if we can keep it up, and if we can make some more kills. So, quick look from the side. I see that there is a little tank coming. I tried to kill him, but the shot goes a little bit to the right, just taking out his commander and turret ring. Another shot, and boom, that was a beautiful shot, taking out the Dicke Max. Very dangerous tank, especially at this battle rating. So I see another tank, and that was taking my chances, but it pays off. Critical hit into the turret, killing 3 of his crew members. Then I try to help one of my KV-1s, M2 behind him, boom, another kill. So, again, rather fast pace, patience. Yeah. Then I turn around, see a lot of other rodettes on the radar, try to figure out where to expect them, and there I actually make a critical mistake that I barely survived. I turn around, can't see anything, and boom, there goes 2 of my crew members, and I'm left with just 2. So, 2 crew members. In every tank, that means you have a very long reload. But this Marder 2 was set on fire and also fired, so he had no chance. Now I have to be more patient. I have to wait until my shells are reloaded, and I'm very exposed here. So I hope I can lay an ambush for tanks that are unaware. Yeah, taking around the corner. I see that KV-1S, very dangerous tank. I have to give him a side shot, and boom, there goes his engine set on fire, and I can retreat before this KV-1 gets guns on me. I lay some artillery strikes into here. Here a bomber, I retreat, and there, that was a lucky shot. That was a lucky shot. This Panzer IV J was fleeing from the bombs, running right into my gun. One shot kill. Yeah, again we have to wait until we're reloaded, and there goes a lovely hit streak from my artillery strikes, and that was a lucky shot, taking out the gunner and also the fuel tank. And oh my god, there are 2 KV-1s behind me. Now I have to run forwards, and that lets his fuel tank explode, it seems like. And another artillery strike kills I don't know, a T-28? Yeah, T-28. I have reloaded, go around the corner, and those 2 KV-1s are gone. And then, holy moly, there is a Dicke Max. Oh, that was a lucky shot. Killed his gunner. I retreat. But there is a hole in the house, and I got saved by a team member. And then again, some bombs in front of me. I lay an ambush. Somebody coming around? No? Well, let's machine gun this BF-109. Critical strike, and yeah, I have to go forward, but very carefully. one crew member again and I'm dead. And one of my crew members is very hurt, very injured. I see there is nothing around. I hear a friendly tank from behind. Look, yeah, let's give this T-34 the way. And for a moment I had a shot on the Stug 3F, but I hesitated because the T-34 was going for. There is a CIS-30, but he's hiding behind the stone. Can't get guns on him, and it's right this moment where I decide, well, surviving is more important than getting greedy and probably die. But I have to secure the bridgehead. It's unlikely that anyone is decapping at this moment, so I'm preparing to win. So, and no enemy spotted. Heavy metal hero, 12 kills, 1 capture, and 3 enemy assists. And then we have the post-battle results. 43,000 silver lines and 3,514 research points without any multipliers or bonuses. So, and I'm also first in team. So, that's the Panzer IV F2 for you. I think now you can see why I like this tank. And, well, in all honesty, it looks better with the normal camouflage. So, that's it for this tank review. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Leave some feedback in the comment section below, and see you next time.